What's up guys, hope you're doing well. Today we are counting down the top 15 hardest challenges in Diddy Kong Racing. There's a whole lot more that goes into beating this game than many would think. It's not as simple as winning some Grand Prix and calling it a day. Diddy Kong Racing is full of unique challenges, like its boss races, free-for-all style battle games, and who could ever forget those godforsaken coin races where you need to nab 8 coins placed around the track and still manage to get first place. Making it through Diddy Kong Racing's adventure mode is a classic challenge, and this is where many players would stop. But today we are taking things up a notch, with all these selections coming from its notorious Adventure 2, where your opponents are significantly harder than before, the coin placement is even tougher, and on top of all that, the tracks are mirrored. So all those turns and drifts you just learned in Adventure 1, prepare to do the opposite with tougher competition. To really make things even more interesting, we are not going to use the game's best characters, such as the unlockable drumstick and ironically fast turtle, Tip Tup, because that just wouldn't feel right. We'll be mid-tiering it up with our main character from the front, Diddy Kong, for the entirety of Adventure 2. Before we get started, I'd love to know, what are some of the tracks you remember the most? What were your biggest challenges? Without further delay, here are the top 15 hardest challenges from Diddy Kong Racing. Number 15, Everfrost Peak 8-Coin Challenge. The increased difficulty of Adventure 2 really starts to show its teeth by the second world, Snowflake Mountain. While the first world, Dino Domain, is a bit harder, at least to leave everybody in the dust, Snowflake Mountain though is already at a point where races take multiple attempts, and Everfrost Peak is one of those courses. As opposed to the coins being something you'll see along the way, Adventure 2 has courses that require more exploration. What I would often do at the end of one of these races is turn around before the finish line and navigate the course backwards, hoping the coins I couldn't see earlier would stand out that way. So a lot of these challenges require an extra layer of exploration, trial and error, before you can even think about getting all 8 and first place. Once you know your route, the first coin is placed on your right between the wall and a tree. The second is down on the left, right over the top side of a wall that you wouldn't see unless you already knew it was there. They have a couple of coins up ahead that you can't grab at the same time, so you have to keep these things in mind for your next lap. And aside from the coins, these harder opponents, it only takes a mistake like coming to a halt from hitting a tree or squarely with a wall to probably force a retry right then and there. They've got another coin between a wall and a tree on your left, and then up to your right against the wall. And again, anything that you miss, you have to remember for the next laps. Now we need to dive down to get one we couldn't before when we got the coin by the tree. There's another one down the middle, right behind the rocky terrain. And lastly, against the wall. Once you get all 8, now there's just one more thing to do. Finish the race as fast as possible without any mistakes. Having to fly around backward to find all the coins and a fair amount of resets on the first lap once I knew where they all were, making Everfrost Peak a very worthy number 15 on the list. Number 14, Whale Bay. A hovercraft course in the tropical waters, Sherbet Island is a very lovely place to be, but it can be pretty dang annoying on Adventure 2. Snagging all 8 of these coins is one thing, but they love to pull you way out wide on your turns with their placement, taking you off track and leaving you far behind first as you're trying to snag them all. The hovercraft can be tricky in its own right since it has pretty slippery turning, and if you're not careful, you can pretty much bring yourself to a standstill with a bad turn. Trying to make more narrow and straight lines with hops to assist staying tight is how to make good time, but it's not so easy when you're forced outside on the biggest turns. I did have to explore a bit to find all the coins, since they're spread out on the boat, underneath waterfalls, a couple grouped together that you can't get at the same time. Having to start out behind means it helps a whole lot to try to snag bananas to build up your speed and hit boosts along the way. The whale to boat turn combo right here, cutting right, helps earn some seconds back, but you can only utilize it once since they put one way out left and another at the far end of the boat. Hitting those boosts makes a massive difference, but this is a tough course to snag all 8 and come away with the win, making it number 14 on the list. Number 13, Smokey the Dragon. Here we are with the obligatory World Guardian selection. A top challenges list wouldn't be complete without one. These guys all play a major role in the spikes of difficulty on your way through Diddy Kong Racing. Smokey is the guardian on the 4th world, Dragon Forest. The overall toughness of these guardians by your final world races on Adventure 2 isn't something to play around with. Not only are they fast opponents themselves, but you have more and more stuff getting in your way, whether that's the trees, snow, bubbles, and in Smokey's case, his fire puffs that scatter in your path and send your plane plummeting downward with any contact. You get the sense that this guy's supposed to be just a bit harder than the others, even by his extra cheap lead off the line. They're all cheaters that jump the line before you, but Smokey doesn't even try to make it close. It might surprise you to see that even when you do miraculously pass him safely to take the lead, there are still fire spots out there, since now they somehow last for the entire race. You have to take a couple of tighter paths than the dragon a few times to give yourself a chance. All it takes is one crash or bump into the wall to be back behind this guy and is spewing fireballs. Always a fun but not easy challenge, and that's why Smokey's number 13 on the list. Number 12, Boulder Canyon. 8 coins on Adventure 2 on these waterways ends up being a pretty tough challenge. They have their few moments of pulling the player out wide for a coin, even having to plunge into the castle's moat and swing around for one. Inside the castle has a couple of tricky placements too, like having to hug a wall, which isn't super easy unless you already know ahead of time, especially using the slippery hovercraft. On the way out, there are a couple of coins as well that you need to alter your route in order to get both. Aside from being slowed down by the coin placements, you may also get devastated by the large floating logs on the way, especially when they're hit and spinning, which can knock you backwards, and when races are at this height of difficulty, you really cannot afford anything like this to happen. When making your comeback, you have to hit the boost, make your angles count, without many mistakes. Some of the coins are just easy to miss in general, like on the way out of the castle and also tight on your couple of turns. The goal is to have all of your coins snagged by the second lap, so you can just focus on racing for the final lap. It's going to take some tries getting this one down, and you can't afford to be knocked around too much at all, so it's number 12 on the list. Number 11, Spaceport Alpha. On the final world in the game, Future Funland, you can rest assured that you're coming up against some late game challenges. This flight around the spaceport nabbing 8 coins is quite the test. There are some coins just along the way not too horrible, and others that you just have to know of before a turn. The long stretch with all of the lasers being shot at your plane is a dangerous place because any contact from those and you're plummeting downward. Plus you're coming to a dead stop if you run into any of these protruding metal roadblocks. I also had to do a little bit of flying around backward to find the last coin, and that's just something that happens when coins are placed tightly behind or around certain turns, like swinging way out to the right and getting this one in the boost. There are 3 coins in the laser alley, and the trouble is when you're shot that not only slows you down, but pretty much ensures you're going to miss the coin you were going for. Having to keep coins in mind is always a lingering concern until you finally hear those faithful words, "Go for it," and you can focus on trying to earn first. It's an advanced flying course and probably going to take you quite a few tries, especially on Adventure 2, making it number 11 on the list. Number 10, WizPig 2 on Adventure 2. If the final race with WizPig to finish the game didn't make the top 10, something would feel very wrong about the list. If you're surprised it isn't higher, I don't blame you because I'd say it's probably top 3 hardest on the first time through the game. It's only down here because so many coin races became that much harder on Adventure 2, but even still, flying WizPig 2 on mirror mode through certain parts of the tunnel makes your brain feel like mush, having to do the opposite of all that you just learned through all the reps on your first time through the adventure. It's a tough race with things in your way and a swift pace being led. WizPig surges forward at a consistent rate that requires you to keep up through a lot of obstacles and flying the tightest lines if you ever want a chance at taking the lead from this guy. Any big mistakes aren't going to cut it here. Being in a plane with these arches and rocks means you're pretty much in constant danger of having to retry. At least you get a much easier part of the race outside, which is a consistent way to make up big ground in WizPig by taking a straighter line to the next tunnel. But there is a lot out here to bring you to a stop, including a big room full of lasers. It's tough to snag the shield where it's placed, but it's helpful if you're struggling to find a good consistent line through the room. Grabbing items can definitely help, but what you'll be leaning on the most is your ability to get through this course without any major mistakes, and that's why WizPig 2 is number 10 on the list. Number 9, Crescent Island. Crazy to think that we're 6 choices in, and this is the first kart racer on the list. Crescent Island from the third world Sherbert Island is one heck of a leadoff. First you have to dive down to your right for the first coin. The only way you're finding a few of these is with above and beyond exploration. You have another one tucked down to the right on the beach, very easy to miss, and another one pulling wide on a turn behind a couple trees. You've got to be comfortable with accurate drifts for a chance here. A coin completely out of sight and hard to safely snag is behind the mast of this pirate ship. This requires a precise drift with a touch of the brakes to come back to the track. Another coin that pulls you really wide is near the final turn, so might as well grab that early and try to cut it tight the next 2 laps. Per usual, hitting any available boosts and snagging bananas as you can is going to help a lot when making your big push for the front. You can at least grab all 8 coins on a single lap, although it's pretty much guaranteed that you'll be in 8th to start the second lap, but a swift second can get you into the top few and in position to take home the glory. You have to explore for all the coins, and it'll take practice getting this route down before you have any chance of competing, plus you have a couple of turns that have to go right in order to not be stuck too far behind, so it's number 9 on the list. Number 8, Haunted Woods. Here's another tough kart racer coming to us from the fourth world, Dragon Forest. You want to snag as many bananas as possible because you need everything in your favor to win races like this. There's a large fountain with coins on both sides, plus one just past the bottom of it. It's another example of where you need to alter your route depending on the lap. Same goes for the 2 placed on the bridge. Have to remember left or right for the next time. Drifting over bumps in the haunted forest and castle can result in mistakes like bumping the wall, and it only takes one hard stop to feel like your chances are thrown in the dumpster. You have to swing out on a turn for another coin outside, and also miss a speed boost grabbing one before the finish line, so you can't forget about that one and choose your timing wisely when you go for it. I had a handful of races that felt close enough to finish, but it takes some level of mastery to get these tough turns and coin placements all together, and then be speedy enough to actually catch up to first place. I know people remember this one. It's pretty darn tough, making it a strong number 8 on the list. Number 7, Greenwood Village, another kart racer and another race in Dragon Forest. This is home to quite the race and one of the most notorious coin placements in the entire game, which will be coming up. They weren't trying to play nice here, so first thing you have to swing out wide near the well for 1 coin, but there's another to grab in the well next lap, making you take a wide turn 2 out of 3 times. There's one to grab in the woods with a drift to the left, but worst of all, they put one behind the tree in the middle of this log tunnel junction. So you have to somehow swing in there and then immediately cut it back out without hitting anything. They have a couple out wide on some turns. One that's easy to miss though is on the inside turn of this castle tunnel. If you don't know exactly when that's coming up, you're going to zip right past it every time. On the second way through, grabbing the coin in the well can be awkward. You won't always fall down there depending on your line. Grabbing all the coins by the second lap gives you some time to just focus on winning, and I was really fortunate to get through the race when I did, because after a strong race, I accidentally had 2 little clips of the wall, which stopped the cart. Fortunately, a couple speed boosts were nearby to help me move on, because Greenwood Village is a hard race with some tough coins, especially the one in the grass between the log openings, so it's number 7 on the list. Number 6, Windmill Plains. The single plane section from Dragon Forest is nothing to play around with. You're going to have quite the time grabbing all of these coins and catching back up in this race. There are some placements again that will probably require some exploration and backward laps, such as a couple placed right over some large bales of hay, It's overall a tight enough race where early resets will probably be a thing, since missing boosts or hitting a wall kills your chances of moving fast enough. It's a race that you probably won't have all 8 coins after your first lap. They make it just a bit too inconvenient for that, so you'll have to remember the remaining coin or two on your second lap. If your racing went well with hitting boosts, grabbing bananas, and minimal time wasted, you may be near the top few racers. All you need to do now is make sure you avoid any catastrophic bumps on the way back. It seems to be a regular thing that 1 to 3 racers separate themselves from the rest of the pack, so it really does take some tight racing to get back up into first. Grabbing as many bananas as you can, as early as you can, makes a big difference, along with grabbing those blue balloons, properly using those available speed boosts, and executing these tight turns around cliffs and straight lines through trees and windmills safely. It's a lot to ask for from the player, so it's number 6 on the list. Number 5, Dark Moon Caverns. Here comes a really tight and tough kart race on the final world, Future Funland. The bumpy terrain of the moon's surface and the zigzagging turns makes this a pretty tough course to get down. With all the bumps and walls, you have to be on your drift game constantly in order to not get snagged and brought to a halt. The coins make you weave in and out of turns, plus they can be easy to miss with the difficulty of the course. And naturally there are a couple coins that you just have to remember because they're so tightly tucked around a turn. The coins are tricky to get with the jagged flow of the course. This ended up being a track that I would struggle to get all of them by the first or even second lap since you pass them so quickly. The attempt where I finally got through, I still had 2 more coins to go into the final lap, so it was do or die time. Have to race ahead for first but can't miss those last 2 coins. Fortunately, I ended up getting them on their couple of wider turns before the loops and managed to squeeze from 5th to 1st on a very tight finish. It was a relief to get through this challenge. Dark Moon Caverns is a very advanced course, there's nothing mild about it. The handling required for these turns, on top of the bumpy terrain that can easily interrupt your drift, makes it very difficult to hit all 8 of these little coins along the way, which is why I had to put it at number 5 on the list. Number 4, Space Dust Alley. Space Dust Alley is what I would consider the hardest overall plane challenge in the entire game. It's another course from Future Funland. The things that make all the others hard are of course present here, with more stuff to hit, coins that take you off track, and one in particular that's super out of the way that we'll see soon. There's your typical handful of coins that you wouldn't see unless you drove the course backward already to find them, and that means they require quick diving turns off track to get them as well. And these dives have to be accurate too, otherwise you're hitting a wall, column, or a tree, and anything that stops you like that, as you could guess, really destroys your chances. You won't end up grabbing all the coins in the first lap. Pacing it out with a couple of these makes your route a lot more efficient and doesn't make the surge to first feel impossible. You have to be dialed in to make everything work. These squeezes and turns are tricky. There's a lot of stuff that can slow you down, so your handling has to be on point. Your lines have to be straight, gotta make the boost count, using the blue balloons for additional speed. Even when it feels like you're executing everything pretty much perfectly, you still have to hold it really tight and make the final stretch count in order to finally get first place with all 8 coins. You've got to be a real space ace of a pilot to leave your opponents in the dust in Space Dust Alley. And that's why it's number 4 on the list. Number 3, Frosty Village. I'm sure it may come off as a surprise to have a challenge from only the second world, Snowflake Mountain, come in so high on the list, but Frosty Village 8 coins on Adventure 2 is absolutely ridiculous. Now this is a course that takes exploration to find all the coins. If you drive through it even with your eyes peeled front and back, you'll never find 2 of them. It's only when you look off track that you can get them all. So you have a few in the hill area, one beneath a bump, another that pulls you out wide to the glowing homes for a much slower turn, and another you have to remember next lap between the wall and a tree. The 2 coins that you'd never find without abandoning the course are located in the woods. You have one on your left and one on your right. There are speed boosts off course, but I promise you, hitting them is way easier said than done, especially multiple in a row, because if your angle is slightly off, you're shooting right past the next one. The path on the left is also a wide turn, so that slows you down too. There are 3 examples in this course of not being able to grab 2 coins at the same time. 2 at the bottom of the hill, the 2 in the woods, and also at the finish line, one on the outside left and also on the outside right. So this course coin route takes a lot of practice to get down. It ended up taking me more time than everything we've talked about so far, and was the first challenge to really slow down my progress. Any missed coins just make the last laps even more tense given their spacing. This one comes down to another clutch last lap with coins to get. I was incredibly relieved to move past Frosty Village, 8 coins on Adventure 2, and onto the rest of the game, making it worthy of number 3 on the list. Number 2, WizPig Race 1. This has got to be one of the most infamous races in gaming history. WizPig can make you feel as if the challenge is downright impossible. A lot of players would get to WizPig for the first time and be met with the rude awakening that he's virtually unbeatable if you don't know about the boost mechanic that Diddy Kong Racing does a terrible job at communicating to the player. You have to let go of the gas going over the boost pad and only press it as the rainbow smoke is just about cleared in order to do it properly. Pressing A again too soon will completely shorten the power of this boost. And in regard to learning how to do this boost, in case you're thinking this is why manuals are important, well, it's nowhere in the player's manual. The how to play section just does not feel complete without this vital information. The only way you can beat this guy with normal boosts is if you're a top tier character such as the unlockable Drumstick or Tip Top with their superior high speeds. But if you're any other ordinary character, you need to know about the special green rainbow boost mechanic. If you don't, you simply cannot keep up with WizPig. This is a very hard and unforgiving race that is going to force so many retries it'll make your head spin. It's basically to the point where if you miss a single boost pad, you might as well restart. And you can only afford for a handful of these boosts to be a standard purple by mistake. Doing this race in general is hard and takes a lot of reps to get the course down right, so then imagine how tough it is for your mind to now navigate this whole thing on mirror mode. It feels like your brain is melting as you unlearn what you had to practice to get down and now learn to do the opposite in order to get past WizPig on Adventure 2. The players know WizPig on foot is ridiculous and a nightmare from so many childhoods that it has many adults with a story. I got through everything up until WizPig, and it makes sense. This guy is totally ridiculous, making him number 2 on the list. Here we are at the top of the list. It's hard to imagine what could possibly be a harder challenge than WizPig on mirror mode, right? Well, the next thing we're going to talk about is completely optional and serves as a huge completion bonus challenge. Number 1. Unlocking TT, the time trial clock.
Hi there, I'm TT.
The idea of unlocking this guy right here sounds like a classic in-game myth that you'd hear circulating on the school bus. Just to find out, it's all a big hoax. Seeing the credits for your first time, though, is when you may have the realization that there are more characters to unlock, because you see the character icons for all the racers, including the unlockable Rooster, Drumstick, and sweet mercy, who in the world is that? TT, the time trial clock. The guy wandering around in the lobby of all of these worlds, holding on to your personal bests. Unlocking this dude is its own gauntlet. You have to unlock and beat all 20 staff ghosts. That's one on every single course. And you know what? This is where a racer like Diddy Kong is on the cusp of physically not possessing what it takes to get it done. Drumstick, for example, is a character that gives you at least another 2 to 3 seconds on your overall time, and you desperately need that to win. Even with the straightest of lines, tightest turns, green rainbow boost, TT superior high speed will ensure you're going to see this guy catch up to you like a freight train on the later laps. Diddy Kong or any mid-tier racer makes these challenges feel impossible, even on the simplest of courses. I wanted to avoid resorting to Drumstick and use another charming familiar character that isn't totally overpowered, and Banjo from Banjo-Kazooie has a slightly higher top speed, and he really feels like that's basically where the line is. Drumstick makes them feel tough but doable, Banjo makes it feel barely possible by tenths or even hundredths of a second. This is pretty much like playing through the game one last time. No coins, no nonsense, just focusing on the best routes, pure speed, and the lowest time possible. Having to play at this high of a level and do this all on 20 courses makes unlocking TT the hardest challenge in the entire game, and that is why unlocking TT the time trial clock is the hardest challenge in Diddy Kong Racing, making it number 1 on the list.
You've beaten all my times. Now you can pick me.
I had played this game once before, but had not yet experienced Adventure 2. I just assumed it was only a mirror mode, but with the increased challenge of opponents and the coin locations, plus unlocking TT, makes Diddy Kong Racing a real challenge to 100%, and it makes me proud to display this beauty on the wall of games. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.